Awesome. So
Okay.
hello to our YouTube and Facebook Live.
Hello,
Followers.
world. Hello. Here we are. Today's July 10th, 2020. Still in the middle of coronavirus, and it's Friday. What else is new?
It's Friday, and it's 1:22 p.m. where I'm at, so I'm gonna have some rum, I think. Or
Well, I suppose it is 5 o'clock somewhere, right? I guess
is
right
that what
now.
that song is? It or is it 1 o'clock somewhere?
No, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, Jackwagon.
Man, I am messed up.
5 o'clock somewhere.
It's 9 a.m. somewhere.
Yeah. I heard from someone I know who moved down to Florida and was kind of living down there permanently and doing his thing down there. And he said, the key to surviving that kind of lifestyle is to not drink anything before 5 because it can turn into a crazy life if you are starting before 5. So be careful, except when we're live, right? Then you can have a beverage.
Okay, so let's just get to it. Enough preamble.
Why are we? What's this? I mean, why are we live right now? What the heck are we doing here, Chris?
Yeah, so that's what we want to talk about is why are we doing this? Why the Indigo podcast? Why Indigo Anchor as a firm? Why do we even head down this trajectory in life? Whole thing, our passion and stuff.
Yeah, why are we spending time doing that? We instead of just doing our consulting, or instead of and even our approach towards our consulting work, or other types of pursuits, right?
Right.
We wouldn't have to be doing a podcast. We wouldn't have to be investing in trying to make our offices look pretty so we can try to do some live video.
My office would look like trash.
Mine did, and you know it.
All right. So the deal was Ben and I met in Afghanistan.
That's right.
I was on a deployment there as an executive officer for an infantry company. I had some Canadians that were under our unit and everything, doing some missions and stuff. Met Ben. Ben was immediately, I knew he was my type of guy. We talked about integrity and that kind of thing. And, just growing up, even when I was a kid, I would see parents say stuff, right? I would see other people do stuff, and it just lacked integrity. It was just full of garbage.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be around those kinds of people. We've all been, you want to rely on the person to your left and right. And even in the military where we talk about that, I would say that's mostly the case. But, you'll still have a guy steal some, if you don't secure your stuff in the war locker, somebody might walk off with your iPad or something. Yeah. So, that lack of integrity all over the place was something that I didn't see in Ben. So when we got back from Afghanistan, I was doing some consulting under my own name. And in that space, I was like, hey, I should call Ben and see what he's doing, right? And then oddly, you had a consulting gig that said, hey, we should do this one together, right?
Yeah. We had a gig, and it was like, hey, there's an area of expertise that this organization needs, and we don't really do that, but who's a perfect person for that? Well, it happens to be my buddy Chris Everett, and guess what? He reached out to me a few months ago and wanted to do some work together. Was just figuring out possible synergies there, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. So that was kind of the kickoff. But the thing for me was integrity, and getting to know Ben over the years. That's definitely borne out. Like, I would trust Ben with my life. So
I appreciate that, and back at you.
And I have, right? So we have this consulting firm together, and we would go and, when you do a consulting engagement, generally somebody has some kind of purchase decision making. I am looking for a organizational assessment, right? And they're trying to buy something kind of off the shelf, or I need leadership development training, that kind of thing. And fine. So we would do those. We would, hey, I need to go agile as a company, or I'd like to start Scrum. I know those are gross oversimplifications of what we do. But we kept seeing all these topics that needed to be addressed that weren't necessarily monetizable for a company, and some of those would be executive coaching and those kinds of things. And so we decided to do a podcast around what are these items that we see that people need to know about, but that aren't normally part of a consulting engagement. Right. And so, we started podcasting. And one of the things about our consulting and what we do is it's all evidence-based. And this is where I just am probably going to go on a little bit of a rant. Most of the stuff that is out there is just crap. It is rank crap. If it's a top New York Times selling book about, like, let's take Jack Welch, for example. Jack Welch was lauded as forever. Ben, how much of his management stuff that he was lauded for survived academic scrutiny?
Yeah, well, I don't have an exact count on that, but I do know that one thing that he really liked, which was the forced distribution of performance appraisals, where, you got to rank a couple people at the top, some people in the middle, and bottom 10% or something like that. They got canned, right? It was this idea. It was ruthless. And that has been widely discredited as a way to run your company in terms of managing performance for people. Organizations don't do it. Science certainly doesn't support it. So, yeah, and he was named like manager of the century or something by, one of these magazines or something. And it's just, what he did worked kind of for that company in a specific time and place, right? It's not that there's necessarily this swath of universal rules that we can take from his style.
Right. So, this is the problem. Just because you are a successful CEO doesn't mean you know jack about doing stuff. And matter of fact, most people have worked for a dick boss at some point. I mean, if there is one thing, like, what do we have in common as humans? Well, like, we can't even say having all our arms and legs, right? Because we have veterans, but we can say most of us have worked for a dick boss at some point, right? And people like Jack Welch with his up and out or kill the bottom percent damaged a lot of people's lives. And we see this with CEOs are out there, and some of it's some bravado, some of it's some managing some weird board of directors that probably doesn't know what they're doing either. And none of it's evidence-based, because you learn, the thing is most people are learning how to do leadership, how to guide an organization forward from the person that they came up under. There's not a whole lot of people that have done a survey of the evidence-based, management leadership, materials.
Well, and that brings us to this whole idea of what we were trying to create when we were creating our consulting firm. And, we came up with some of our values and so forth, and our approach being one that's evidence-based, and that we weren't going to be married to any specific models or, this is the way that you have to do things within your organization, because a lot of that is context specific within the bounds of what we know from social science. And then as we move forward, as you mentioned, we realize that there's some things that are kind of beyond the purview of consulting work and are more in the purview of education and awareness and ongoing development and lifelong learning.
Right.
And that's where we started to talk about, what are the topics that we're going to cover in our podcast and so forth. And we were trying to figure out, how do we fit all this together? And one umbrella concept that we came up with. So our firm is called Indigo Anchor, and the umbrella for some of our learning and education and more of these non-consulting related activities is what we call Indigo Together. And so if you go to indigotogether.com, that's where you'll find our podcast. You'll find other information. We'll be putting more content there as we go forward. And when we were doing that, you said, Chris, what our website is missing and what this is all missing is a manifesto. We need a manifesto or some statement of what we believe and why we're doing it. And that's when we co-developed what we call the Indigo Manifesto, which is on our website at indigotogether.com. And that's part of what we want to just explain to people here today.
Yeah. And so manifesto, there's the Agile manifesto. Everybody's worked for an organization. Give us those organizational values. And they're about as attractive as a corporate event with a trust fall. You know, the minute, if I get hired by somebody and they're like, let's do a trust fall, I'm just like, I don't know if we're a good fit, because those things are corny, they're surface, and they're crap. And there's so much, especially in the age of social media, which I freaking hate social media for so many reasons. There's definitely some value there, but everybody is tired of being sold a bag of garbage. It's just like hollow. It's just a hollow bag of air. But we've also worked for organizations. I've been on teams. I know probably the one of the best teams I ever had was working for Captain Widener in the Alabama National Guard. That guy just had complete integrity, and he gave a rip. And, you know, anybody would have walked off a cliff for that guy. And so the thing I learned from that is like, say it, believe it, do it. Right. And so we got to have a manifesto that says, why are we doing what we're doing? And so we're just going to kind of read through our manifesto. And this is kind of like our middle finger to the world and the shallow crap that is just out there, and what we're trying to do. And we're not going to do it alone. Like, we've had lots of good guests on our podcast that are helping us. Our hope is that we self-select out the jackwagons that are shallow, that are trying to sell garbage. We've had so many people say, hey, I really want to be on your podcast. I really want to be on your podcast. And we say, great, send us 2 copies of your book. Listen to 3 of our episodes. Can you hang on this thing?
Yeah.
And then they bail. All of a sudden, they harassed us to get on the podcast. And when they know the level of scrutiny that they're going to face, they leave. So anyway, let's get, so the Indigo Manifesto. And we lead off with the sentence that is so key to why, you know, what we're trying to do here on this planet, which is, we believe that the world is better when people flourish at work. All right, Ben, lead off.
All right. So that's the first line. I'll just keep going. Today, work and work-related activities comprise a major share of the hours we're awake. This wasn't always the case. In fact, organizations as we know them today, by and large, did not exist until the Industrial Revolution, which occurred generally in the latter half of the 1700s to the first half of the 1800s. Even then, it took another half century or so before people began to shift en masse from agricultural, family-centered existence to employment as we know it today. Prior to this shift, the primary large organizations with which people interacted included only governments and their military forces, along with various organized religions and some educational institutions.
So now we live our lives in many ways through and members of organizations. Many of us are born in healthcare organizations. Shortly after birth, at least in the United States, we enter various government organizations that register us, issue us birth certificates, and issue us social security numbers. It's likely that we often experience various forms of childcare organizations, followed by preschools, schools, and work organizations. Along the way, we're likely to spend some time in various other organizations, be they civic, sports-related, religious, or social in nature. Of course, we also engage in and with numerous organizations on a daily basis through our work, commerce, and play.
All of these organizational encounters and experiences shape us. They give us identity, an answer to the question, what do you do? They put us in contact with numerous other people who influence us and who, in turn, we influence. Because of these realities, these taken for granted features of modern existence, if we want to make the world a better place, a great place to focus upon is the workplace. Focusing upon work and the people that conduct that work is our passion. And by improving the conversation and path forward regarding the future of work and organizations, we hope to have a positive influence on people everywhere.
We believe that human flourishing is a complex, multi-level interaction. That brings us to the idea of flourishing. What do we mean by human flourishing? We understand human flourishing through both what it is and what it is not. Flourishing is akin to thriving. It includes the full spectrum of wellness. It includes growth, resilience, and living a life in an optimal range of one's potential. Flourishing is not simply human survival. At an individual level, human flourishing has psychological foundations and components, along with associated notions of how we see the world and our place within it. The vast majority of modern existence puts us in contact with others. These interactions raise the question, how should we act in the world? The answer to this question involves an examination of morality and what compass might guide us as we move forward.
Modernity is the story of emergent human thriving. Despite the many substantial problems and suffering that certainly exists, quality of life has indeed improved dramatically during the past 2 centuries. And yet, technological advancements pose new challenges regarding the world of both work and daily life, along with the intended and unintended consequences of those advancements. Given that life is organizational in nature, the concept of human flourishing necessitates an exploration of the relationship between people at work as individuals and the organizations in which they are members. It also involves the complex interactions that we have with each other on a daily basis and how we navigate social norms.
At some level, we want people to admire us, to like us, to want to be around us. And we want that admiration or connection to be deserved. We want to be worthy of it. But what does that look like, and how do we achieve it in modern society and in the modern world of work? Beyond the individual and team or organizational level, human flourishing involves additional questions about our communities, the social fabric that brings us together or creates fault lines between groups, and the broader context of all organizations. These broader collectives must also ask them, how should we act in the world? With regard to human flourishing, the connections among employees, organizations, and their various stakeholders and their specific environments matter greatly. Suboptimal flourishing is a loss of life that has nothing to do with death, but a loss of the life best lived. This is the stuff that makes the world better. This flourishing must be enabled by both the exploration of these larger themes and sets of actionable practices. Human flourishing is necessarily a complex topic, yet it is one of utmost importance, with implications for society, organizations, teams, leaders, and daily life.
We believe that opportunities to improve human flourishing abound. Our experience in organizations, both as members of them and as consultants working to improve them, suggests that human flourishing is not particularly common. This means that there is much opportunity for improvement. We want to explore these opportunities by examining the relevant social science and finding evidence-based practices that will help. Our approach is inherently interdisciplinary, with insights coming from the fields of industrial organizational psychology, management, sociology, communication studies, political science, philosophy, and more. It is within this space that we dedicate our efforts as curious people, academics, consultants, and practitioners, and swing for the fences to make the world better.
Yeah.
There you have it. That's the Indigo Manifesto.
We spent some time on it, like this wasn't something, okay, what's some fluff we can just,
right,
put out there. When I look at my kids and you're like, hey, listen, it's like you put on a suit, you sell an organization a load of crap, and then ta-da, cash. And so when you're sitting on the porch crapping yourself, because that's all you can do in your old age, right? And you think about the memories, you want to be like, man, I was an unethical salesperson that just printed money on the backs of suckers. Or do you want to look back? I mean, I just think, Ben, all the CEOs that we know that we still contact, and you guys, if you guys ever watch this, that we just call to see how your kids are doing because we freaking love you, because we really give a rip. But anyway, back to the stuff. I see all of these humans that are just damaged in organizations they're killing their people. They don't have stuff like your annual or quarterly performance review dialed in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may have come up as an HR professional, or you may be a victim of an HR professional that, like, I don't know, I used to just have them fill out their W-2 or 1099, tell them where the breastfeeding room is, and say good luck with your future career at our company. That's okay if that's where you're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about large organizations that are buying stuff from shill salespeople. They're saying, this is buy our new software platform. Everybody's trying to sell a software platform because you can get that recurring revenue. It's like, we give you the printer for free, but the ink is like way too expensive, but you're going to buy it. You'll buy our Dell ink or whatever, right? No offense if Dell ink is very fairly priced. I don't know. But, you know, they go through that, but people don't know that there is actually thought leadership in this area, evidence-based thinking around a whole host of business concepts. And
well, and just going back to a point you already made, but this idea that there are people in organizations who are treating their role as leaders, as managers, as executives in a cavalier, self-interested way. Now, I don't necessarily have a big problem. I don't necessarily have a problem with self-interest. However, when it is unmoored from a larger purpose, it can be very damaging. And,
we've worked for these guys. Their boss thinks they're amazing because they manage and make everything. But meanwhile, they're stomping and grinding the people to their left and right and below them.
That's right. And taking credit for everything that their people are doing and not mentioning that, this is the result of a team effort and all of those types of things. And one thing that I talk about with my students frequently, this is kind of where I get on my soapbox during one of my classes. It's when I talk about job satisfaction. I talk about, job satisfaction is important because guess what? Job satisfaction is a big part of life satisfaction for a lot of people.
Yeah, because you only spend a whole bunch of time there.
Yeah, and you spend a lot of time, right? So if your job satisfaction is low, your life satisfaction is lower. And one of the big inputs for your job satisfaction is your satisfaction with your boss, your satisfaction with the people around you. And if you as a leader are treating that in a cavalier way, you are possibly damaging, right, the lives of people who are working with you and below you. But you're also missing a huge opportunity. So being a leader, being a manager is a huge opportunity. It's a huge responsibility. And it's a time when you can very directly make a positive impact on people's lives, right? By helping them have a flourishing experience at work can help them flourish more, a little bit more in life overall. And, you may be, because due to the fact that, you may be reducing their stress just by being a good boss, being a good manager. And by doing that, you could actually be having positive health outcomes for that person, right? You could be lowering their blood pressure a little bit, which is fantastic. And I just see, that's not going to come through some app that you buy or some book that you pull off of the airport bookstore shelf and read, in 10 minutes. It's something that comes through deep integrity. It's comes through some self-reflection and through looking at some of the science around these different topics. And that's what we're trying to do here. And it's, you also mentioned that this is not a solitary effort. That's why our whole kind of our educational and non-consulting realm of Indigo Together is called Indigo Together, right? Because we want to go together.
Yeah. So we've all worked for the dick boss, right? And some of them are victims of the machine that brought them up. Some of us, if you're a mid-level executive or something, maybe you're at the director or junior vice president level, or just senior manager type level. You develop some relationships. If you're a person, if you're just a good beating heart of a human on this planet, you'll develop relationships. And I see this where I talk to, when I do some executive coaching, or I just, get a call from a friend who's at a new role, just stepped at the VP level or something. And hey, what do I do? The company wants this to go down, but it's completely unfair and garbage to the people on my team.
Right.
But I just had a baby. I can't afford to lose a job right now, or ooh, a pandemic. Like I saw this a lot during the last economic turndown where great, nobody's going to leave us for another job. There's no jobs to be had. So it's time to just beat these truckers up for some freaking productivity.
Wow.
And a lot of people are smart enough to go into survival mode there, and they'll do what they got to do. But I think we should also rail against doing what you got to do, because dang it, we need to thrive. That person has a family, their own kids. And yet when we get put in these places where it's me or thee, that I can't get behind that kind of living. I just can't.
Right. And so much of what we see in the consulting world is a bunch of shallow promises. We see products and services that are offered that, aren't going to do much, if anything, for the organization. They're not going to solve the problem you're facing. And so that's a lot of what we're talking about here. But Chris, I've just been so happy with how things have been going with our podcast, right? I mean, our most recent episode with Kate Ball, it's blowing through the roof. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's great, because here's the thing. This is not 8-minute abs for the manager.
No, this is usually 60-minute abs and eat your asparagus.
Yeah. Your abs are made in the kitchen after months of dieting, which obviously I should get more on that bandwagon. But here's the thing. We've got CEOs and people that are looking. They're out there. They're ethical. They have a moral framework. They want to do well. And then they crash into the reality, the brutal, crappy, dark elf reality of the world. And they're looking for a better way forward. Right. And that's what we hope to provide. We're not I was a CEO and now that I'm retired, I'm just bored. So I'm just going to do a podcast. I'm going to write a book about my experience, but none of the crap in there is actually evidence-based, but I look good in a suit. I did a TEDx at a nondescript mid-level town. But the reason these guys get stuff is they have social networks and people think they actually know what they're talking about.
Right.
And we're going to start doing it, where we're going to start calling out people for the baloney that they're selling. And we're just like, oh, well, actually, what do you know? I made $1 million, or I made 50 million, $200 million. We're like, well, here's a stack of peer-reviewed journal articles that says what you're doing is garbage, buddy. and the thing is behind these people is strewn carcasses of other good people. Some people say, hey, I'm concerned with the hostility to capitalism. Meanwhile, you haven't optimized your organization to ensure human thriving. Actually, let me just go on this side thing. So when you incorporate, when you S Corp, C Corp, or other thing, there's a handshake. We want people in this country and globally, really, to take risks on new ventures. Right? I mean, hey, without new ventures, we're still in the, steam engine period of time, right?
Yep.
So, but one of the things we realize is it's really hard to take a risk when, if you fail, you're going to get thrown out on the street, and you watch your kids, no shoes, no shirts, no service out on the side of the road. They didn't even throw your goods out there because they took those too. We had debtor prisons in the earlier history of humanity, and this stuff was garbage. We said, listen, if somebody's going to risk their stuff, they're going to put their assets into this entity called a corporation. That corporation can own and transfer intellectual property and a whole host of things. We're going to deputize you to take that risk without taking away your livelihood, right? But there's a social exchange. In return for that, you have a social obligation to the community that you're in. And that's not just buying the daggone T-ball uniforms for your local town. Right? That's not setting up a foundation for people of color that doesn't address systemic structural issues. You don't get to do the check the box garbage. That's baloney, And so anyway, you have all these people that have been victims of organizations that haven't been evidence-based, that have had poor moral compasses and stuff. And there's a swath of people that are just ready to just wholesale bail on capitalism. Like, and we see this in some of the surveys from Pew and other places. And why would they want to give capitalism a chance? Why would they want to give a corporation a chance when they've been nothing but kicked in the nuts by a bunch of unethical, self-seeking jerks? And we say,
and that's what they think capitalism is, right? And that's what it is to them.
Right. And that's what people go. They go to the lobby. They go seek tax breaks. They go seek all of this stuff under the auspice of free market capitalism. But they ignore that fundamental moral handshake as we allow you to incorporate, but in return, you got to take care of your people. I mean, this is very simple. Like, there's a right way to win. Nobody wants to win. And I can't say nobody, because we've had bribery and cheating and the national, whatever, in baseball and a variety of national sports where, hey, throw the game and you'll get like millions of bucks or whatever it is.
Right.
And so we can't say that there aren't people that are willing to do anything just for themselves.
Right.
But just like, so there was a time before 9/11, right? Before the towers went down, where and it was obvious, like if somebody, jumps up on a plane now and yells, I've got a bomb or some kind of, everybody bum rushes that person.
Right.
Right. And I think we're at a place where when somebody stands up and says, listen, I'm going to treat my workers unethically and drive them into the ground, hooray, maximizing shareholder values. Like, we're at us with some stuff. I'm not talking cancel culture. I'm not talking about deplatforming people. But we're at a place where, as workers unite, we got to stop. It is time to bum rush unethical jackwagons here.
Goodness, you're starting to sound little.
Oh my God,
little Marxist there. But no, I get what you're saying in terms of I think coming to a reckoning of what bad management is and what it does to people. Right.
And I can already see the freaking Harvard MBAs or whoever, like the smartest guys in the room that come from the most impudent privilege ever, going, okay, great. Hey, you want to pass through the gates of moral responsibility? We've got an algorithm that will help you get by with the minimum viable moral responsibility.
Minimum viable morality.
Right. We'll let you be as much of a jerk as you can be without affecting profits. And that is just like, you guys need to, like, I don't know. God, you just want to throttle the necks of those kinds of people.
But wait a second. I mean, Chris, like every company on their website says somewhere that their people is their highest priority. Are you telling me that this is not necessarily true, that they are lying on their websites?
Everybody knows that's bull. They know it's bull. I have friends in the LGBT community. They can say like, hey, yeah, they have an LGBT whatever director, but this person's just a token queer person. That it doesn't filter down into hiring practices or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think organizations try to signal certain things, right? And they signal it through their purported values, what they say they care about. But then there's what they really care about. And you get to know that once you kind of get under the hood of the organization. You start working there a while, you see how people really get treated.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I would say last month was Pride Month, right? And everybody's locked down with COVID. And normally, and this is a big complaint, is a lot of these Pride festivals, the Absolute Vodka does a rainbow bottle of vodka for that time. Everybody's like, how can we commercialize Pride? Okay, we're going to have branding. Target's going to have the rainbow. And I think Target's reputation is better than many. we're going to get U2's going to come in. We're going to have the commercialized. But what was interesting about Pride this last time, it's because everybody was locked down. It was a community coming together based on and around values. There wasn't any corporate co-opting of Pride Month this last year, or a lot less than there was. Some of that overlaid with some of the Black Lives Matter protests, which Black Lives Matter is two things, by the way. It's a hashtag, is slogan, rally cry, and then it's also a nonprofit that has some mixed reviews. So I just want to separate that. But the idea of marching for civil rights and having this, this wanting to be involved in America and the American experience and experiment just as much as anybody else. I mean, that's a real and honorable thing to feel passionate about. Just like we feel passionate about what we're doing, which is evidence-based interventions for organizations. So
what we're really passionate about is human flourishing at work and beyond, right? And one thing that I think is perhaps becoming more noticeable for broader swaths of the population is that there's a lot of people who aren't flourishing. Right? There's a lot of work to be done there. And I'm really looking forward to some of our upcoming podcast episodes where we're going to explore that even more with some real experts. It'll be really great.
So to the book stuff, there's so many CEOs that write books and they're garbage. They're actually a net harm. Jack Welch had some practices that damaged countless. I mean, I'm sure somebody could count them, but a lot of people.
Right.
And that's problematic. And to be fair, I mean, I haven't, if anybody knows Jack Welch, let us know. We'd love to have him on our podcast or on an interview. If
he can hang.
If he can hang, right? Like if he can deal with the question, it's like, let's talk about
right now
what you were thinking. But this is the thing, in time of uncertainty and in times of chaos, this is when strong men can take over. Right? Yeah. We lose. We're like, God, if somebody could just stand up and be a beacon of light, we'll just flock to him like moths to the flames. But we don't want to get burned, right? And that's why we can't be emotionally led only, right?
Right.
And so some of that, so there's a realm of best practice. There are so many things around best practice of treating humans within an organization and how to do their reviews, how to do their conversation. Like, sorry, bud, you're not going to there's no room for upward mobility here.
Right.
But I'm going to, is it ethical to just string a carrot along just to keep them there so you don't have to hire somebody? Is that really ethical?
No, I don't think so.
There's some best practices around these situations that we face every daggone day that are missed. Like we're not.
And some of it just requires some diagnosis before treatment. So, I mean, this is the idea, that I like to think about in terms of evidence-based management or gathering some data or using the evidence that we have from social science to guide how we run our organizations. So many times what happens is that an organization thinks it has a problem, or a manager thinks he or she has a problem, and they maybe know of a training solution that they can implement, and they think that's going to fix things. They did no assessment of the situation, no assessment of the needs of the people to really figure out if that's going to have any probability of working.
Right.
Now, this is similar. I mean, if we wanted to take this into the realm of medicine, right? This would be if you imagine walking into your doctor's office, doctor doesn't talk to you, the doctor doesn't examine you, doesn't order any tests, doctor just hands you a bottle of Lipitor, right? And says, good luck. That's what we do so many times in organizations. We say, oh, or we maybe we just even find a solution and we say, oh, this would be a good thing. Right? Because it's a solution in search of a problem. And I think in organizations, just like in medicine, treatment without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yeah, but it feels so good, Ben.
It does. It feels good.
And sometimes you don't even care about the cure. Hey, I'm the chief human resource officer. I need to tell the C-suite 2 initiatives that I'm going to achieve these years. They'll be easy. I'll tell them why, and I'll tell them the plan, and I'll tell them how we'll know it's successful. And it's just softball pitches.
Yep.
I know I'm going to hit it.
Yeah.
We've actually turned down or said no to, or, places where we could tell we were just to check the box for them. You're like, I'm sorry, I have a life here. If I'm going to miss, I live in Park City, Utah. If I'm going to miss skiing or some banging mountain biking, I'm not coming to your organization for a check the box. Go jump in the lake. That's stupid. But there's plenty of numbskulls that will go for that. Fine. But anyway, they come and they say, well, okay, we're going to get somebody and they're going to do this thing to our organization. We decided, and we just bought it off the shelf and execute it. They report to the C-suite and say, okay, look, we achieved those easily sandbagged objectives. Ta-da! Live to fight another day. Meanwhile, people in those organizations are literally dying for a famine of evidence-based interventions.
Yeah. Or, sometimes the people just want management to stop doing things, right? Sometimes the best management is to not manage. Like, just stop trying for a little while.
Yeah, you gotta do a gut check. It's like you versus the placebo. If the placebo wins, God, go do some push-ups. What the heck?
Yeah, go do some push-ups, Because if you can't be smart, at least you'll be strong.
I love it. If I can't be smart, I'll at least be strong. But people are being damaged. They're being demoralized. And then eventually the smart ones get like numb. I call it their give a frick breaks.
Yeah.
They just walk around and then it's like, well, this is life. Trash TV is better than what I'm doing out in the world. And that's bad.
That's baloney.
So there's this idea like in economics around like, so why do we care so much about the unemployment rate? Because it's a measurement of lost potential. If we have an economic upheaval and we dump out 20%, like some of what's going on right now with COVID, 20% of people that want to be working, that could be working, are sitting on their keisters waiting.
Yeah.
And then time moves by because we're moving, like C.S. Lewis says, we're moving at the speed of time. Regardless, you can't stop time.
Well, yeah. And
we'll lose months and months and months of millions of people of work that could be used to benefit everybody, that could benefit themselves. And people's marriages are getting destroyed because the stress and the politics and the stuff that they're just getting thrown aside. Communities are being ripped apart as people are like partisanly at each other's throats and not seeking to optimize relationships. I mean, this has real implications and impacts, right?
Yeah. And it also, the other statistic that's oftentimes used is the labor force participation rate, right?
Right.
Which is, so, let's say the unemployment rate is X. Well, after a while, some of those people just stop looking, right? And then the total percentage of people who are even in the labor force starts to shrink, and that's not good either. I heard a statistic the other day. I can't remember exactly where I saw it, and I can't necessarily verify it's true, but I think it was from a reputable source, if I remember correctly. I don't usually remember things if they're from bogus sources, but it was something about, okay.
Unless it's so bad.
Unless it's so bad. There was one that was, it said that, so there's the unemployment rate's fairly high right now. But for employees who make less than $40,000 per year, the unemployment rate is something like 40%, which is way higher than any of the than the overall.
And they're exposed to so much risk.
Yeah.
And
people live
there's data around there. There's even a whole book written about like a lot of people are like $50 away from being evicted.
Yeah.
And then they get on a government program that costs thousands of dollars. When $50 could have saved their rear, they could have stayed in the same schools, or kids could have better outcomes. I mean, these are ideas of human flourishing that I mean, I come from a conservative background. I believe in human resilience, human accountability. I believe definitely that there's a lot of jack wagons on the face of this planet
and numbskulls
that will self-organize in the damnedest ways.
Yeah.
Right. That being said, and I get this from some people that, what you're suggesting seems kind of socialist a little bit. And it's not about socialism, because nobody goes to the church and say, hey, you're a socialist, church, because you help out homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. The homeless is all of our issue and problem.
Right.
Mental health issues that drive unemployment. That belongs to all of us as a community. I know I see this in the Army. It's like, well, this guy's a piece of trash. We're about to chapter him out of the Army. I'm fine with that. Like, there's some people that should not be able to carry a weapon and go on a deployment. But I don't see the other half of like, hey, listen, we throw them out of here. That's fine. If that's what we got to do. And lots of times I see people try to move to that where it's not warranted at all. But okay, fine. Some people have to, but it's still a problem for everybody that's on this spaceship called Earth.
Yeah.
They don't just stop existing because we threw them out of an organization. And so that's where it's like, we definitely do awesome things with organizations. I'm very proud of the stuff, Ben, that we've done for organizations, turnarounds, executive coaching, moral education. I mean, we bake. People don't generally play like, yeah, can you give a moral education to my organization?
I mean, I think part of it is that you and I, we take the failures and successes of the people around us, we take it very personally, right? If we're working with an organization or with a leader, we really want that person to succeed. And we take that very personally if they don't. When they succeed, it's awesome. We had a great call the other day with a board chair who reached out to us and said, and we had worked with his organization about a year ago, and we'd done a lot of work with his executive team and stuff. And he reached out to us and said, hey, I just want to have a friendly chat, and proceeded for about 30 minutes to tell us what a great job we had done with. And we were like, we weren't asking for it, but it was really great to hear, how things have continued to be positive for this organization, even through the challenges of COVID and other challenges they were facing. It was really, really great to hear. That's why I think that at least the way that we're approaching it or trying to approach it in terms of management consulting, organizational consulting, this is noble work. Because
I feel now, Ben, you're still a devout Catholic. I think that's awesome, right? I came from a religious background. I was evangelical. I converted to Orthodoxy. I'm now secular, but I still am so informed by that moral compass that we've got to go into the world and daggone make it better.
Right.
And I don't care what your religious belief or personal belief is existentially or doctrinally, as a secular person. Now, people of faith definitely care about those things, and I'm not knocking that. But I think one place that we can all unite around is human flourishing. How do we help people do well and do better? And this encompasses ideas of mental health. This encompasses our employment rate. This encompasses how we compensate our employees. This encompasses education. This encompasses the fact that, and I'll just throw this out here, bias training has mixed reviews on its results. However, we give a rip about bias and how people, because you know what? If you can't succeed, no matter who you are, based on the color of your skin or your gender expression or whatever, that's bull crap. And I know, like, growing up as a kid and scouts and stuff, sissy boys faced a lot of freaking harassment. And like, some of those guys probably invent the most incredible things as engineers and inventors everywhere. And they probably have some like psychological baggage because of how they were treated growing up and all that kind of stuff. And that's crap. That's crap. That's somebody saying, I'm going to win socially and in promotions, not on the value of my ideas, because maybe I'm just a dumb butt that doesn't have any good ideas, but I look good in a suit and I can muscle somebody. I mean, that's not real capitalism, is it?
No, it's not. Right. Wow. That's the Indigo Manifesto, my friends.
And so the books that you see out there, right? And I want to pick on a few people. Like it's not that they are completely wrong. I mean, it's hard. Like what even a broken clock is correct twice a day, right? If you're the old school analog, right? But these are people that are selling. I mean, we see this around certain aspects of personality testing, which you got to handle with care. There's some good evidence around certain stuff, like the big five has kind of been validated, but there's lots of people out there saying like, hey, are you a trucker, a builder, or an engineer? And
what color is your personality? Or I'll just say it, you know, the Myers-Briggs type indicator is crap.
It's crap. And so when you go, you got to take the Myers-Briggs as part of your application at an organization, or you're the final three. And so they give you that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's not evidence-based. It's full of baloney.
No.
And so many people, and it's easy to sell.
That's why. Yeah, it's easy to sell because everybody gets to take it and feel good about themselves. But it's about as valuable as a horoscope, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's there are a few things that you know, I can say really strongly with regards to the findings of social science on personality, but that's one of them. The Myers-Briggs type indicator doesn't do it.
Right, but we know lots of people. I know big organizations, enterprise level organization, Fortune 500 companies that use these items.
Yeah.
And damn, you know, like what are you doing?
Well, I never.
Well, I never. You know, I love 1950s style. Like, this is highly irregular. I wish it was highly irregular, though. And so you have these
irregular. It's highly common. I know.
You have these things. So SHRM, right? The Society for Human Resource Management.
Yes.
Yeah. So they wanted to professionalize certain stuff, like, you know, how do you set up like a compensation program? How do you know, these are ideas, like those things can be professionalized, but what has not been professionalized yet? And probably because, I mean, there may be, not to be conspiratorial or conspiracy minded, there's a lot of people that pay a lot of money for these things. And for SHRM to say, listen, if you're using Myers-Briggs, it's garbage. I don't know how many people, how many organizations would stop paying dues. I mean, I don't know. And maybe none. But I think organizations like SHRM and other people can start to take a stand against these ideas that lack evidence.
Right.
These are things that organizations embrace them. And here's the thing, people in those organizations are not necessarily evil. I have a problem, and this is some of my problem is, okay, I know I have a problem. I need to find some answers. I want some help. And then they go out there and somebody looks good in a suit. And, you know, maybe I have a hang up because I'll never look good in a suit. You know, it's like, you look like hammered garbage, like in a suit.
Hammered garbage.
Speaking of which, I keep drinking this booze.
I was gonna say, keep drinking, you know.
So, but anyway, some people honestly are looking for stuff, but and we've all seen it. Some of us are more inoculated to it than others, of people trying to sell crap through social media, through these whole these items. And that's why we're not advertising for today's episode, brought to you by this suboptimal human resource management software that doesn't do crap and isn't evidence-based, but they gave us 20 grand. So we're like, we'll talk about you for 30 seconds for 20 grand.
If they added a couple zeros to it, I don't know.
Yeah, 20 million.
No, not really.
No, because we couldn't live with ourselves.
No, I mean, if we were, so, you know, all of you who want to advertise on our podcast, you know, and others, because we are getting to that point. If you want to advertise with us, we're only going to do it if we legitimately feel good about it, right?
Yeah, like so we talked about Podbean. Podbean's fine. There's Pocket Cast is fine. These are just outlets for people to find content. That's like, you know, do you hate DuckDuckGo or does Google better? Who cares? There's search engines, right? They're commoditized in that space.
And you know, I'll just speak to my friends over at Rogue Fitness in Columbus, Ohio. If you guys want to send me stuff for free, some of your awesome equipment, I will wear Rogue shirts.
Who made your kettlebell over there, Ben?
Oh, see, I can't say. Oh, it wasn't Rogue. That's a now out of business company called Muscle Driver USA.
All right, Rogue. You gotta send Ben and send me. Now, Ben, what kettlebell size are you throwing?
Well, are you pointing to the one right there, asking what that one is, or
no? What are you throwing in your day-to-day work?
Well, like so, this morning I was using a combination of a 53-pounder, a 70, and an 88-pound kettlebell. So, and then I also did some swings with my 100. I have a 106-pound kettlebell that I do swings with. So
you are a mule. You just get to work with a docile personality.
I mean, they're good instruments.
I mean, I throw the 35, the 55, and the 70. The 70 cannot be for those high rep workouts. There's no way.
Yeah.
Are you doing Russian or American or?
Yes. So we could do a whole hour probably talking about the Russian versus the American style kettlebell swing, which is another really interesting and important aspect of human flourishing, because the American style is, you know, one thing. I'll say that, you know, most of my introduction to using kettlebells has been from the Russian perspective. And it works very well. I won't say that the other styles are wrong.
Is the Russian straight out or is it all the way up?
No, so if you're going to put a kettlebell overhead, the Russian style, that would be a one-handed snatch, right? You wouldn't.
You're going bam.
You wouldn't do it with both hands, because that's kind of awkward and a little bit unsafe, because you're still keeping the kettlebell from. It's not resting securely on your forearm at that point. It's so.
I love to
get up and demonstrate this.
I love it. We're gonna put you in a American flag Speedo.
if we really start,
our subscribers will go through the roof.
Oh, but the kettlebells are great. I do like the good kettlebells. Yeah.
So anyway, the deal is, there's evidence-based ways of approaching life in these scenarios, and when you have to explore new places where there, you know, no man has gone before, so to speak, there's even best practices for how to conduct yourself in those emergent kind of places. Yeah. Oh, look, we got a comment from a listener. The American style swing destabilizes scapula. Oh, this is your brother. Okay.
Yeah, well, of course. So he's right. So he's a medical doctor. I mean, so he's not.
Jeremy, why does CrossFit do that? Is it just because they're a bunch of garage numbskulls, or I mean, come on, Glassman's fate, like Glassman's out of there as far as CrossFit.
So I mean, what Jeremy said is that the American style swing destabilizes the scapula and is a garbage overhead exercise. I completely agree. You know, because that's where you're taking the kettlebell and you're putting it.
This is human flourishing at its finest.
Both hands, right? And it's unstable. It's not safe. If you're going to do an overhead exercise with a kettlebell, you should just press it right like this, or you can do a one-handed snatch. So if you're going to swing a kettlebell, then that's where you want to bring it up to about chest height. And it's actually a more of a violent movement than most people think. Most people kind of, it's a swing. No, you're really popping your hips. And
no, that's the whole thing, is because when you bring it down, you pop those hips, and
yeah. So the idea is, I mean, it's actually a really useful exercise if you're trying to, for example, increase your vertical jump, the kettlebell swing, because you're really loading up that entire posterior chain. Yeah. Now, I'm not that kind of doctor. So Jeremy says, I think CrossFit took the exercise and tried to make it look, make it more metabolically taxing. Like Ben said, do the snatch. So metabolically, right. So it gets
that's a whole Metcon thing. Yeah. Which, the Krebs cycle, there's good data around that. I mean, we're totally evidence-based.
No, but there are great ways to get your heart rate up. I mean, without doing the two-handed overhead swing with a kettlebell. Do a one-handed snatch, do Russian style swings. What I do at the beginning of my lifting workouts is I do a Tabata interval. If our viewers are familiar with the Tabata interval, Google that. It's a 4-minute type of cycle where you do 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest, and you repeat that 8 times. So it's 4 minutes long.
Email your brother the link so he can get in here. Let's get him in here. Jeremy, you're getting in here.
Well, you want him to be on the show?
Yeah, we're bringing him in.
Oh, well, if he's available. I don't know if he is. But
I mean, he's on here, so let's bring him in. Just email him. Jeremy, you're coming on the show.
He's like, oh, I need to put a shirt on.
At this point, if you're watching for an hour, you actually want to know if we're more boxers or briefs kind of people,
Well, I'll send him the link via email. I don't know if that's
all right, Jeremy. Check your email and just log in. I'll add you to the stuff.
But yeah, so what I was saying is that at the beginning of my workouts, I do a Tabata interval with front squats with a barbell.
Now, Tabata. So Tabata is great. I mean, this is, one of the things that has a lot of traction on the web is life hacks, right? Like, I remember seeing this thing where somebody's putting a X-Acto knife inside garlic clove, and they're just popping it out. I haven't tried it yet, but everybody's interested.
Garlic clove.
Yeah. We'll have to post.
I was emailing my brother. What did you say the first?
So the people are interested in life hacks, right? Yeah. And there's so many things that don't have a shortcut, but I'll tell you this, there's a certain amount of time that stuff takes. But if you go the non-evidence-based route, seeking, unless you win, you're just flipping lucky on accident, you don't actually arrive there. So it can take you this long or this long. That life hacks will help you get there. And so first thing is evidence-based thinking.
Yeah. And there are some life hacks that are evidence-based, like the Tabata interval, which to my knowledge came out of research on cyclists in Japan. And they found that you can actually increase your cardiovascular endurance to a fair amount by doing this very high intensity 4-minute exercise. And it was similar to much longer, lower intensity periods of exercise. So
text your brother. Text him. Just be like, hey, are you getting on or what?
He might be at work. He has a real job.
It's like, what is it? 4:30 his time? Where's he at?
Yeah, he's on the same time as me.
Meanwhile, my happy hour is brought to you by Appleton Estate Rum. I heartily recommend Appleton Estate Rum.
Are you just having that on the rocks, my friend?
Well, I ran out of rocks.
So now it's just no rocks.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Appleton Estate Rum. And it's because I only go to the liquor store every so often. And you're like, oh, I really would like some scotch.
I have never had rum just kind of on the rocks.
Oh, look, Jeremy's here. Look at this.
You got him?
Jeremy, what's up, dude? I don't even know you.
Wait, is he? He's frozen. Is he frozen on your end? Oh no, there he is. Hey, you're Looks like you're muted. You might need to unmute yourself. Can't hear you. No. There's a little cross through your microphone.
Hold on, unmute. I clicked unmute mic.
You have to unmute him, Chris?
I clicked it, but I don't know.
Oh, say something. Say something, Jeremy. Looks like you're probably unmuted, man.
No, he's unmuted. I can hear him. Are you there?
Say hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear us?
Okay. Having a hard time hearing you guys.
Oh. Having a hard time hearing us.
Let me try this with some headphones, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining the live stream of the Indigo podcast / whatever we're doing on this Friday afternoon. So obviously you're not working right now. Well, you probably can't really hear us. He's putting headphones in.
He's getting his headphones on.
So a note to all of our listeners: if you comment on us,
we may just invite you.
We may
spontaneously to be on.
Yeah.
Hey, you there, Jeremy?
Can you hear us? I wonder how this works with.
Yeah. The audio stream from you guys is coming through real broken though.
Really?
I'm not sure why.
Cool. So Jeremy, what kind of medicine do you practice?
I'm an anesthesiologist.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow, we brought somebody onto our live video stream that like put people to sleep. I don't know if that was the best decision.
It's literally his job.
Yeah. Probably appropriate for 4:30 on a warm afternoon and a couple drinks.
That's right.
You know?
Man, I'm a little bit ripped right now. I'm.
I don't know. Is it?
Well, I would be, but I'm in the process of trying to get rid of what I call the quarantine tub, which is the excess weight that I've put on during these trying times. So I'm laying off the beer for at least today. We'll see about tomorrow.
Just a heads up, Jeremy, you're live on 3 YouTube channels and 2 Facebook channels.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So you
right.
thought so that's
Nice.
where if I send a text out and somebody's like, oh wait, no, because the digital platform I'm using, it can just respond to who everybody comes conglomerated into a giant feed and then whatever.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, where are you right now? What state?
Oh, neat. Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. Yeah.
So Jeremy, you're in Virginia. Where in Virginia are you located? Tell our viewers. Can you hear us? I think he's having audio issues.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I don't know. Who knows how this works with mobile?
If you're at hour 7, you've got this shit real. What? Oops, did I say that? You got the boop real. Boop.
That's right. Are you able to hear us now, or do you just want to?
Ben, can I? How come I'm not hearing you?
I don't know why you can't hear us. We hear you perfectly. We do. What if you just stay on video and I just call you on my phone? Let me hear.
All right, I'm booting him.
You're boot? No. Leave him.
No. I'm gonna mute him.
Okay, and then, hold on. Then I'll just call.
If you're concerned with quality content, the quality content was done 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So it turned off his video. You can hear me right now, Jeremy?
I can hear. Yeah. Now I can hear everybody. Yeah.
Okay. So So now you're not on video, but we can hear you. So you can just be like
it may be my iPhone too. This is an old iPhone. So.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, we can just kind of we can just have you chime in So we were talking about kettlebell swings, and you had added some medicine and some physiology and whatnot to the conversation.
Right.
The American style swing and how it destabilizes the scapula and is a garbage overhead exercise. I definitely agreed. And, you know, there's other things that you can do just to get your heart rate up if that's what you're trying to do.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the idea is, you know, like kind of back to what you were saying about the Russian style kettlebell work, is to think about as you put things over your head, is you literally want to think about pushing your scapula, which are your shoulder blades, like the tips of those shoulder blades, like down toward your back pockets, keeping them pressed down. And when you have both your hands on a kettlebell and it's up over your head, you know, it's some weight over your head and your scapula actually kind of flared out. So, you know, it's not a healthy way to get things overhead.
Right.
It does get your heart rate up, but it also puts your shoulder in a disadvantageous position.
That's right.
So I would, like you said, there's plenty of other safe things that, you know, if you want to puke your guts out doing some kind of, you know, Tabata Metcon type thing, there's plenty of safe ways to do that are better for your joints.
That's right. That's right. Hey, Chris, were you going to ask Jeremy a question?
Yeah. So Jeremy.
Yeah.
You're out in the world as a medical doctor, and I know you did anesthesiologist, right? That's like a kind of a narrow focus, but there's what I like about medical doctors. So my dad is a doctor. Did you listen to the podcast where we had my dad on?
I started to, and then I got pulled away from it.
Yeah, no worries. No. Siblings and family members get a pass for not listening. The people in the world do not get this pass. But it's this idea of like one of the things I enjoyed. So my dad was like head of two residency programs, if I remember correctly, during his career. And you talk about bedside manner and dealing with the populace. And you know, historically, the only people with a graduate degree in a community, most communities, were doctors and lawyers, right? And so this, and so this idea of like, if you needed expertise, you'd go to these people. Yet what I appreciate about doctors and lawyers is they have this human pragmatism. You know, they even talked about it during med school about bedside manner, right? And so you know that like, hey, I really need this person. And evidence shows this is the best treatment path or whatever it is. However, I have to bring it to them real, because if I don't bring it to them in the right way, they might just carte blanche reject it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that could definitely be a thing. How you communicate things to patients makes a huge difference in whether or not they're going to be accepting of something that may be good for them or not. Absolutely.
Right.
And so by proxy, as an expert, and this is this idea of like lay opinion versus expertise. By proxy, as an expert, you kind of know what's best for somebody, right? Based on the evidence and medically, right?
To a certain extent, if it's something sort of limited in nature, I guess, like it's hard to say globally what's best for somebody because there's a lot of things that play into that, you know, like I guess the thing that just popped in my head would be things like end of life issues type stuff. Like I could tell somebody, yeah, to save your life, we need to do this, this, and this, and this, and you know, that may be like big picture wise not the best thing for them. It's kind of a nuanced thing, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, but here's an example where, I mean, to the best of your ability, you understand what the heck's going on, right? You go in and look at those psychosocial issues. You try to understand the cultural context. You put all that into your expertise hopper, and then you have either a hard recommend or multiple course of actions with pros and cons. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. And, you know, ultimately, it's up to the patient at the end of the day whether or not they want to go along with it or whatever, depending on what the thing is.
But yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
so I got a question for you, Jeremy. I mean, what is and I don't know if you want to say it or not, but what is your I guess here's an easy question. What's the status of COVID stuff down in your neck of the woods in Northern Virginia?
So cases in general in our part of Northern Virginia here have been declining somewhat. So it's not terrible. The testing situation isn't great either, though. Virginia as a whole is basically in phase 3 now. So bars and restaurants are gradually opening up. They're not opening up like full steam or anything yet. I'd say overall it's not terrible. I'm not seeing a lot of patients at hospitals in this particular little chunk of Fairfax County. So
oh, you're in Fairfax County?
Yeah, we're lucky here. Other parts of the country are not nearly so lucky right now.
Yeah,
dude, I grew up at Shouse Village. I swam on the swim team there. My grandmother and aunt were all in Fairfax. So like my grandmother's in McLean, and you know where the Wolf Trap outdoor music.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, same neighborhood. That's where my aunt.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, okay, great, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's a nice area here. Yeah.
So
cool.
so there's this idea of, yes, people have decisions, and I think end of life decisions are very nuanced and have a lot of weight. But one of the things that I'm dealing with out here, so I live in Park City, Utah right now, and there's people that are talking about, so our governor issued a mandate in the fall, kids will wear masks to school.
Okay.
And some parents are like, go jump in a lake. You can't tell me what to do, which is true. You can't tell them what to do. I mean, it's better to bring people along, but
those little jackwagons should be wearing a mask,
right? But here's the thing, and I like Nate Silver talks about this. Our opinions about mask wearing have changed, but the science around mask wearing has not changed. We don't have good data around a cloth over your, your scoutmaster's wife makes you a face mask. Like we know what an N95 mask does because we have certain needs and stuff, but like a mask could be an N95 mask. It could be I mean, there's a whole
idea from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong though, is that, some sort of cloth covering can help. We don't know. I mean, it depends on the nature of the cloth and how it's constructed and its thickness, all that kind of stuff, and how it adheres and seals around your mouth, all that kind of stuff, right? That can help with the prevention of droplets from exiting your mouth and potentially infecting others. It's not going to be super protective for you necessarily, unless it is one of those.
Well, we don't know. We don't know, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's that we don't know at all. I mean, there is some evidence, right?
I don't know. Jeremy, weigh in.
What do you think? There's a little bit of evidence that mask wearing decreases transmission of the virus. Kind of like what's been said in terms of preventing me from spreading it to somebody else if I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah.
It does very little, unless I'm wearing like an N95 mask. It does very little to protect the wearer. However, some of these other societies that have implemented mask wearing kind of at large, I guess I'm thinking of some of the Asian cultures, were able to get this thing under wraps pretty quick.
Right.
And here in our neck of the woods, maybe where people feel mask wearing is an infringement on their rights of some sort, now we're starting to see things blow up a little bit again.
There's always that human factor. That's what I love about lawyers and freaking
some science to social distancing and prevention of transmission of the virus through mask wearing. For kids wearing it to school, that'll be interesting. I believe me, I want the kids to go back to school. However,
we all, God,
younger kids wearing masks all day, I just don't see them cooperating too well with that. The plus side is that kids are quite a bit less likely to transmit the virus, get the virus, that kind of stuff. So kids are less of a worry. The teachers, though, are, clearly a concern.
Yeah, it's almost like the teacher should be wearing N95s,
Yeah, I know, that's brutal. When you have to wear an N95 like for hours at a time.
Yeah.
It really kind of cuts into your face. The straps cut around your ears. It's just
right. And people who say, "Oh, you feel uncomfortable." Like I saw a meme on the web that talked about like, they compare certain like masculine performative events to wearing a mask, right? And like what are you doing?
I'm just scratching my chin.
Oh,
Sorry. I wasn't saying that you
like,
had.
do I have like, am I like bleeding from my throat? I'm like,
anyway, you're talking about.
I think there's this idea of you can't handle a mask, but like you're a medical professional. You had to do this as part of your residency and a whole host of other stuff. Wearing masks are miserable, and I disagree with people who will discount the idea of wearing a mask is miserable. Therefore, that's not you're a weakling. If that's a call for you.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, it's miserable to wear an N95 all day. I mean, I think I
like my N95 better than my cloth mask.
I would say, I mean, but wearing a cloth mask isn't going to cut into your skin and stuff. It's not going to be as uncomfortable to wear all day. I kind of like what the military is doing in terms of the DoD's policy right now. It seems to
I'll be right back.
To me. We got to wrap up here soon, there, shipmate.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's trying to take a bio break in the middle of our thing here.
I've been drinking a lot of rum.
Yeah. So I mean, what the DoD is doing is that if you're on a military installation and you're going to be within 6 feet of people, you need to wear that mask, right? And I think that kind of makes sense regarding, at least seems commensurate with what we seem to know, right? So I don't know.
There was I was listening to something. This guy that has a popular podcast. He calls himself Z-Dog.
Oh yeah, we're familiar.
Yeah, Z-Dog's hilarious.
Yeah, he has a episode about talking about kind of why people get so offended about the masks, like whether wearing them or not wearing them. Why is that? Why are people taking so personally? And he kind of equated it to, some people on one side really value like their safety and their health, and kind of the responsibility they have to not spread the disease, and other people favor more heavily like their personal rights, or as they see them, their personal rights. And that's probably why you see more, people on the right-wing side of things protesting mask wearing and that kind of stuff, and people that are more left-leaning, agreeing, promoting masks. And it has nothing to do with the science. It just has to do with kind of like their underlying, I guess, philosophies.
It's their worldview, and it's interesting. But what's interesting to me is that take a total libertarian approach. The libertarian approach would say, hey, like you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't affect me, right? Well, guess what? You not wearing a mask, right? Yeah. You not wearing a mask, that affects me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's somewhat of a false logic that a lot of these people are using.
And the other frustrating part about this whole COVID pandemic is that the data has been all over the place, and it's coming at us with a fire hose. And every day you're reading something that's contradicting the thing you just read yesterday, and the public doesn't know what to make of it. The medical professionals barely know what to make of it. Yeah. So it's extremely frustrating, and that's why it's adding to the controversy and why people are saying, hydroxychloroquine is great. Hydroxychloroquine is killing people. Masks are great. Masks are stupid. You're infringing on my rights. Open the businesses, open the schools. All this, it's just, it goes on and on and on.
Well, and that, so one thing that Chris's dad said is that a lot of this probably is going to need to come down to personal responsibility, where it's like, hey, I need to know it. I need to try to make some educated risk decisions for myself, and do the best I can. And also pushing some of this decision making down to lower levels, and because every region is a little bit different. Every city might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even here in Ohio, they're doing some things where each county is getting kind of a grade, or I guess like a whatever level or something. And
okay.
you know, so like right now, like my county recently reached the level where they're like, okay, well, mask wearing is mandatory in public now, right? So that's a thing. But anyway, it's
I want to read this, so I recommend to our listeners to listen to Google 538.com. The articles, "The Science of Mask Wearing Hasn't Changed, so why have our expectations?" I'm just going to read the last paragraph of that. "The good news is that there's more agreement than disagreement on where to start. Just look at Osterholm and Howard, two experts who might easily be seen as having opposing viewpoints in this battle. Yet they hold similar positions on one issue. They both wish the CDC would have given the public the nuanced information about masks back in March and trusted them to understand it. Granted, that might mean presenting the public with a complex message. And we all know that complex messages in the public are challenging. But so granted, that might mean presenting the public with a complex message, such as, quote, we don't know how well cloth masks work, so distancing should come first. But masks are likely to work to some extent, and not everyone can distance themselves. That's a mouthful and harder to fit on a bumper sticker than yes, you should or no, you shouldn't. But it comes down to what builds trust more, certainty or honesty. Quote, we owe it to the public to help them understand what kind of protections they're getting. We owe it to the public to tell them what we know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I think that's a fair statement. It is a nuanced thing, and it's all about mitigating risk, and nothing is going to eliminate the risk.
But I don't like nuance. I want certainty. I want you to tell me what to do.
But if somebody told me I could live to 200 and never get laid, I would tell them I'll see you at 45. Jeremy's like, what just happened there?
Talking about the certainty of that situation? I don't know. Okay.
Right. But there's this idea of risk. You know, like one of the things that my dad said in the podcast is like, you know, Ben, you asked him, he said, hey, if somebody's like in their late 80s and they want to go to their grandchild's birthday party, what would you tell them? He said, well, I'd tell them not to do it. But I'd also respect if they said, you know what, I've lived decades longer than anybody else that came before me in my family. And I want to see my grandkid's birthday party. Well, there's an element of freedom there that I think is like powerful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you say, Jeremy?
Yeah, my neighbor, we have an elderly couple that lives next to us, and we've offered repeatedly during this to go get them groceries and stuff, and they refused every single time. They would go get their own groceries. They're old. I think he's like in his 90s. And honestly, I think they just were getting stir crazy, and they just it was just about getting out of the house, and they didn't really care that much.
Yeah,
they're making a choice. It's a risk decision, and they're just like, we're going crazy here, and we're going to get out of the house. So
yeah. Fun times. Well, we've got to wrap this little topic up. Well,
Jeremy, we need you on the podcast. Will you be a guest on our podcast? Look, I'm putting you live on 5 different channels.
Situation here that
no, to get you on the podcast will be much easier. We'll just use a computer. It's easy.
Okay.
But
so Jeremy, are you game?
Say that again. I missed that.
Are
you willing to be on our podcast sometime?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we'll just find out. We'll just figure out a topic and we'll banter about.
Something that I can speak intelligently about, I guess. If it's.
How about
I can make something up?
Okay. How about we have a whole episode devoted to kettlebells, craft IPAs, and meats and cheeses?
Oh my God.
That
sign me up.
You'd be fantastic. and we will consume those and do kettlebell presses during the episode.
Yeah, better make it a long one.
Yep,
Yeah,
for sure. So
it's gonna take a while.
all right. Well, shipmate, I'll let you get going, but have a great rest of your afternoon.
All right, you too. Take care.
All right, cheers.
Bye, Jeremy. So just to recap,
recap quickly. We've been on for a while.
We're evidence-based, right? So where the evidence speaks, we're going to go. Where it doesn't, we're just going to use the evidence-based practice around what to do with emergent practice. And you know what? Go jump in a lake if you're a crappy person that in the name of fiscal gain are selling organizations a bunch of crap that's not science-based, that strokes an emotional ego. Go jump in a lake, and we're coming after you. We're going to come after you in social media, and we're going to come after you in our consulting practice.
Yeah, and feel free to come on our podcast.
Yeah,
we would welcome it.
We're happy to eat you for lunch. But if you survive, great. You'll be the steak that we all sit and chill and have a good time. So
awesome.
Anyway, cheers. Happy Friday, everyone. And I know this is going to be put up and people will watch it, going back. But thank you, everybody that did join and watch. We didn't have a whole lot of comments in the threads, and that's fine because this was more of a, hey, we're going to tell you what the heck we're about. And we make no apologies for this, honestly.
That's right. Cheers, everybody.
All right.
Adios.
Cheers.